Are you looking for a competitive edge in your truss manufacturing business? Are you wanting to increase production outputs with a smaller workforce? Do you want bigger margins on your bottom line? Introducing the best kept secret in the building industry, MEGAjoist. The fabrication method is more economical than conventional nail-plated or metal strut systems, resulting in reduced production costs. MEGAjoist is a patented product that has been professionally designed and engineered to follow beam formulas, making it almost double the strength of similar conventional trusses. MEGAjoist provides solid floors while providing superior service penetrations, creating an easy workspace for plumbing, electrical and air conditioning services. With MEGAjoist being highly customizable, the options for installation are almost limitless. The versatility of this product allows it to be used to support load-bearing walls, to form step-downs as required, to be used as cantilevers, or to be raked for roofs and balconies. MEGAjoist is almost completely constructed of timber, acting as an effective carbon store, and the system can significantly reduce the steelwork in a project, making it much more environmentally friendly than many of our competitors' products. So visit megajoist.com.au or phone 1300 794 840 to get started today.
Joined here today with Darren Hercus, who's the founder and CEO of Australian Engineered Solutions, or MEGAjoist. We've really enjoyed working with Darren and his team. Really interesting industry, really interesting product. Some great innovation solving a problem out there in the world of construction, which Darren will go into. So MEGAjoist is looking to raise up to $3 million in an equity crowdfunding offer. We're looking to go live on the offer hopefully next week, if not late next week, early the following week, and opening up for investment. For those that don't know, equity crowdfunding, effectively what that means is that you become an investor in a company, so you're a shareholder and you get to participate in the future success of the business. So it's not a gift or reward based crowdfunding, it's equity crowdfunding. So you'll be a shareholder. You can invest as little as $500 in equity crowdfunding. If you want to invest more than $10,000, you need to qualify as a sophisticated investor, and happy to talk about that. Any questions after the call if people would like to ask about what that means. But effectively, there's no limit on what you can invest. As I said, the bottom end will likely be $500. So the reason why Darren is doing a crowdfunding raise is because he's looking to bring in people in the trade, people who understand what he's doing and like what he's doing, and want to come along for the journey and become part of the MEGAjoist story. So look, I'll hand over to Darren to introduce himself, and then we might jump into a quick video overview of the business and go from there. So over to you, Darren.
Well, thanks very much, Nick. Thanks everyone for joining tonight, and thanks for your expression of interest. As Nick said, we're looking to raise up to $3 million. The idea is, as AES has patents throughout for Australia, New Zealand and the US, it's about a $22 billion market. It's a big market. And the idea is we want to expand the business, set up facilities in the state and licenses throughout the whole the patented jurisdiction. So we've got conventional type trusses. That is actually metal web variety. The problems with these, they've got sharp metal edges which can cause harm and strip electrical wires. There's inadequate room for large, ducting, for air conditioning ducting and so forth. And over time, the nail plates do separate from the timber, and the trusses can be compromised structurally. And with this sort of product, large spans can be quite springy and bouncy, and it doesn't have a good feel, like a solid feel, like a floor should. Sometimes these trusses, if they're made too long, they cannot be modified on site, which normally means they have to be remade, and that could cost time and money, delays on a project. So if we compare that to the MEGAjoist, this is actually a roof, but same sort of concept. It can accommodate large AC ducts and everything through it, has no sharp edges to cause strip wires or cause harm. It's a really solid floor. It actually follows beam formula, so it's stiffer than like a conventional type truss. They can be designed site dockable, and they're made of 97% plantation pine. We've done various testing, comparing MEGAjoist to sort of conventional trusses. This is one example where the same sort of span, same sort of truss height. The conventional truss gets this on this example got 444 kilograms, and the MEGAjoist got 1.35 tons. Having said that, that is our commercial range. They're designed a bit more solid, but it's still a massive difference. This is some of the advantages of our product. We can support load-bearing walls, have larger spans, cantilevers, and that sort of thing as well.
Darren, it'd be good to give it a snapshot in terms of where the concept came from, how you developed it, and before we jump into the fabrication process as well.
Yeah.
And a bit of your background too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, as my background's a consulting structural and civil engineer. I graduated at RMIT Melbourne in 92, sorry, but the conferring assembly was in 93. So I worked as a consulting structural and civil engineer till about 2000. Moved to Perth with a wife. Worked in telecommunications, doing a bit of structural stuff, project management type stuff, and then went to Oricon for a while in Perth, and then moved back to Melbourne at the end of 2009 and started sort of doing my own consulting and civil engineering consulting as well. The way I came about the MEGAjoist product was quite interesting. I was working on a project in Mount Eliza, south of Melbourne. It was a large upper story extension. I went out on site. There's some engineering issues with this, and I had to resolve some things on the hop sort of thing. And the truss company had made the trusses about 90 mil too long on a whole run. There's at a big opening void area on a mezzanine. So the builder had to throw aside 16 trusses and then spend another almost $2,000 to buy some large LVLs to keep the job rolling. And I thought, this is a bit crazy. You should be able to just trim them and keep using them. And the same day, I sort of, after that appointment, went back to my office, which was my home at the time, and I had two carpenters building a carport, and there was some 190 sort of 45 rafters, and the rafter tails, they were cut off like squares and they were stacked in a pile. And I saw that, and I laid the blocks out in the ground and thought, geez, that could make a good truss. So I built a few trusses, tested them, and in my shed, so no one knew. As soon as I found out it worked, I did the engineering on it, and then I lodged for patents. So here we are, sort of, 12 years later, up and running and trying to expand the business interstate and overseas.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that, so the patents have been granted in Australia, New Zealand, and the US. So
correct.
It's around a $21 billion market for the timber frame and truss market. So a huge opportunity there for MEGAjoist.
Yeah, that's correct. And we've got a customized jig which we designed and built in-house here. And we've got patents pending in Australia and New Zealand, Australia and the US for that as well. And that hopefully will extend the life of the truss patents as well, because you need the jig to make the trusses. So we've certainly got a lot.
Should we get into the fabrication process here now?
Yeah. No, we'll get into that. So it's very simple. Material comes in as in raw timber. We use docking saws, optimizing saws. We cut all the blocks. We've got an optimizing saw that cuts about 1,000 blocks an hour, accurate to plus or minus 0.5 millimeter. It's pretty accurate. We cut all the cords. Then we use the jig to assemble the truss. The glue's administered with basically by hand at the moment, but we are looking at automating that process as well. But we can build a 6-meter truss in 2 minutes. Whereas conventional truss companies, they have a flatbed jig. They can take up to 8 minutes to make 2 trusses or even longer. So in terms of labour content, it's almost half. The cost of the jig, $80,000 retail, whereas a conventional truss jig start from sort of 160 or 150. Yeah, so then we fabricate the trusses on a jig. Then we just basically stack them in the factory overnight. The next day they go out on the truck to site and we're away. So it's quite a simple process. The glue cures, it's 24 hour for full cure, but up about 8 hours, it's about 80% cure. So if we make them at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we can send them out at 7 or 8 in the morning, no problem at all.
Go to the next page, please.
Okay, so here's the market opportunity that Nick touched on. It's huge. And this is a timber roof and floor truss market. In the US, it's worth $18.9 billion. In Australia, it's about 2.3. In New Zealand, it's about $0.6 billion. So you add it up, and it's 22.8 billion or whatever. It's a big pie. It'd be nice to get a little bit more of it. Okay, here's these are 2, I guess, projects. The one on the left was a house at Euroa. The builder is, it's an owner builder type thing, but he's building it. It was his own house. He's building a replica of the Thunderbird's house. You can't see, but on the other side, there's a massive big garage, and you can get his helicopter in underneath. This project, he brought me the engineering drawings for it, and I almost died. It looked like a suspended car park slab, grids of steelwork, timber. We basically got it re-engineered, and we saved him about 7.5 tons of steel on the project, structural steel, and about 3.5 cubic meters of LVL. It's huge. So he saved 80 grand just in the steelwork alone, and probably more in the erection as well. So the house on the one on the right, that's a roof down at Shoreham, down the Mornington Peninsula. That one is actually a bit more like the conventional style of truss, which we can do too. So that's got the standard sort of webs because it's a higher pitch. It's about 5 or 6 degrees. But we can do those sort of projects as well, and it's all done with adhesive rather than the nail plates. So it can be a cost-effective solution there too.
The next page, please.
Okay, this is the video of the Euroa house. If you can fly over there. If you can see the cantilevers, on the top it's about 2.4 meters. On the bottom they're about 2.7. So the bottom's interesting because we've actually done floor trusses that actually turn into roof trusses. So they cantilever out. We've got the parapets on the end, the box cutters already in there. And yeah, there's a lot less steel than there was. This one here is the Shoreham project. Beautiful location, as you can see, but yeah, the trusses worked out beautifully there as well. The builder was very happy. And they're just sort of more like the conventional style. They're very solid too. Okay, so the business model. The core customers are carpenters, builders, and developers. Client reach. We've got an agreement with a company called Trade Alliance Group. They're basically on sellers. They've got, I think, 2 sales reps in Victoria and 3 in Queensland. They've got 480 builders on their books in Victoria, 620, I think, in Queensland. And they're reaching for us to get up to Queensland. So they've been pretty good. Where the deal is, I'll give them a 5% wholesale rate, and they just re-invoice the builder for the 5% extra, and everyone's a winner. So digital marketing is a big part of it these days. I've got a company, Creative AdWords. They do Google ads and that sort of thing. And things like sponsorship of sporting clubs and so on, we do that as well. But the best avenue has been by word of mouth. Like carpenters that use a product, these days they contract to different builders. If when they like the product, which most of them do, they then pass it on to the next builder they work for and say, you have to use these. So we've got a lot of work just from referrals from carpenters and builders and so forth. So the distribution channels, well, at the moment, we've only got one facility down the Mornings Peninsula, and we've got one license in Braeside, sort of, 20 to 30 k's southeast of Melbourne. So yeah, we're looking at, as I said, we're looking at domestic and international expansion in the US. The engineering's been verified by a structural engineering firm in Pennsylvania. I've got Ashley, who's basically a MEGAjoist rep in Maryland, and we're just currently talking to a consultant, Todd Drummond, who's a consultant to something like 300 to 400 truss companies up and down the east coast of the US, and he loves the product and is keen to get on board to try and sell it for us there. The other international area is New Zealand. Not a huge market, but it's still a good opportunity. They love their timber products, and we're getting some interest over there as well at the moment. So hopefully we can get some licenses happening over there as well. Okay, so here we go, progress to date. So currently we've got over 1,500 projects completed in New South Wales and Victoria. Most of them in Victoria. We've only got a few in New South Wales. We're finding the transport cost is pretty hexy. So that's why licenses are going to be, well, a better option, and also facilities. And the reason why we might need a facility in each state is because if you've got a facility up and running, you've got market presence, and makes it easier to sell the licenses. So since 2017, we've turned over 6.5 million. Revenue for last financial year was 1.24 million. And we're growing at about 11% per annum. It's a scalable business. If we get a couple of plants up and running, get a few licenses. I mean, when you look at the US, they've got nearly 4,000 truss plants over there. So, it's a massive market. It'd be great to get some licenses over there. So, as Nick mentioned, we've got the patents in Australia, New Zealand, and the US. They're through. They're pending for the jig, but that still gives you protection while the patent's getting reviewed. We've also got a modest tier 1 export grant from Austrade for the US. So if I can ship a couple of jigs over there and get one of them sold or something, then we can get a tier 2 export grant, which is significantly more, and that could help fund another jig, for example.
Darren, it'd be good to touch on in terms of the patents, and the IP you've got, like how replicable is the MEGAjoist truss, and how unique is it out there in the market at the moment?
Well, at the moment, it's very unique. This is, trying to roll this out back in 2011 and 12 was really difficult. I had engineers that would walk up and fall over backwards. How does this work? Building surveyors didn't want to sign off on it. And I thought, well, here's the engineering docs, and it is very unique. Everyone's so used to nail plates and metal brackets, and they just, people are surprised to see it. But having said that, once they've tried it, I've got quite a few builders that have been using it for 10 years and won't use anything else. As you might have seen on the testimonial there, Claudio is a good client. So we got him out of trouble on one job. The engineer missed a beam on it, and we were able to actually use our trusses to pick up a load-bearing wall, which saved a lot of trouble. So that's, and the advantage is you can modify the trusses if they're too long. If they're too short, that's a different problem.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but thankfully that doesn't happen often, or if at all.
Yeah, right.
But
so
it's really,
next slide, please.
Okay, so here's some of the growth opportunities. So interstate warehouse facilities, we hope to set up, maybe 2 or 3 facilities around the country, leverage off that from more licenses. And then once you've got good traction in Australia, that makes it easier to sell licenses in the US. Cost estimates for establishing a new plant. Well, 250,000 is probably the setup cost. That excludes rental costs. That's an issue at the moment. Properties are horrendously expensive. I believe in New South Wales, you're sort of up to $260 a square metre to rent a factory now. Even in Queensland, it's heading up towards a $200 mark. So we just have to be smart about where we lease, or there might even be an opportunity to buy an industrial block somewhere and build a timber portal frame structure, a MEGAjoist portal frame structure, for example, which would, do 2 things. It would advertise the product, and it would also give you a cheap rental, because effectively, if the company owns the premises, you don't pay any rent. There's potentially $100,000 a year that the company can save and can be directed back into profits. So domestic licensing agreements, as I said earlier, we've got 1 license already in place. I am talking to a trust company in Dandenong, quite a big one, and another firm in Dandenong, and also a timber and hardware company up in Queensland, and also a trust company in New South Wales. So there is a little bit of interest sort of bubbling through. The big issues are, well, interstate, I don't have any presence, so their argument is, well, we're going to be forging the market for you. And it's like, well, okay. So there's an argument. The other thing, issue they've got is that it's because it's so advanced product. The product is very simple, but the mathematics behind it's not straightforward, and the Australian standards just don't cater for it. So it can be justified under the British standards and the American standards, but not the Australian standards. So what we're looking at doing is getting code mark certification. That's basically a third-party certification. I have received the price back from Global Mark to do their part of it. And then I have to also get a third-party engineering firm that's NATA approved or testing laboratory to test the products and test the adhesive and come up with what I've already done. But once that process is done, then we'll get what's called code mark certification. And that's as good as complying with Australian standards. It'll just go through building surveyors won't question it, or owners or builders. They'll just go, yeah, okay. So that process is anywhere between $120,000 and probably $160,000. And that's part of the reason for this raise, to try and raise some capital to get that certification through. It's just going to speed up the whole process of getting the product out there.
So, Darren, in terms of the licensing situation, how do the licensing agreements generally work? And what's the cost for installing the equipment on site for a new user?
Yeah. Look, it's a very simple licensing arrangement we've got in Australia. I'm hoping to set up something similar like that in the US. Normally, it works out at 3.5% of turnover. So one company I'm talking to in Dandenong, for example, they turn over $6 million a year. So there's 210,000 in royalties just from that one firm. We've got a fairly good license agreement written by Peter, a friend of mine who's a commercial lawyer. And the way we've structured it, it's attached to the sale of the adhesive. We won't certify trusses that don't use our adhesive. So it's quite simple. We buy the adhesive, we on-sell it with a margin, and that's basically the royalty built in. And it's good because we don't have to audit. We can, but we don't have to audit licensees' books or anything like that. It's straight, simple. They need the glue, they buy the glue, they pay the royalty when they buy the glue. So we've got a web-based calculation spreadsheet too, so the licensee can jump on the computer, print out, type in the job address, generate a report, and a few other details, generate a report, and it'll print out the certificate, the engineering computations, the standard drawings, and then they just attach their truss layout, and that all goes off and goes straight through the building surveyor.
Go to the next page, Gwen.
So here's the offer summary: raising up to $3 million under the CSF offer, pre-valuation of $4 million. That, as mentioned, that includes all the IP as well. You know, the patent in the US could become worth a lot of money if you get traction over there. So investor rewards, if you're a builder or developer and you're in Melbourne, unless we get a physical up pretty quickly somewhere else, you'll get a 5% discount on the products that you buy. You know, I've got one builder who I've been talking to, and he wants to order $150,000 worth of trusses next year. And I said, well, there you go. You can put $7,500 in and get that straight back off on your sale, on your discount next year. So also for new licensees, if anyone out there wants a trust company, for example, or sets up a new license, you know, they'll get 5% discount on the royalties for the 12 months. So the minimum size of the investment is $500. And anything over $10,000 must be a sophisticated investor, which I believe, Nick's, not that hard to become.
Yeah, so in terms of a sophisticated investor, that's a verification from your accountant that states that either you've got assets of 2.5 million or revenue for last 2 years. Oh yes, yeah. So income of last 2 years of 250 grand or more. We can help you if you think that is you, then we can help you with a certificate and share that with your accountant. But most accountants know what that terminology means. But look, I think from our perspective, what really interests us about MEGAjoist is that they are disrupting a fairly tried and true methodology of construction with some new IP, new technology. It might not look technical, but as Darren said, there's a lot of maths, a lot of thought that's gone into it. They've proven their market position, given they've already completed 1,500 projects. Revenues of over $6.5 million over the last 6 years. So you're not investing here in a startup. You're investing in a business that's been going for a number of years. It's got proof of concept, and they're basically raising this capital to fuel their growth and to build the business. And looking to bring like-minded investors and people that understand the proposition they're putting out there forward for the journey. I know, were there any questions that anyone had or wanted to ask? You can put that through the chat facility.
Okay, here's one from Drew. Patents in the US, Australia and New Zealand, how long is left on this protection? Okay, we've got about nearly 10 years. So the patents were lodged in about 2012, effectively. Australian one was 11, but we relodged it in 12, and that's been granted. So 2032 we've got for the products. But as I said, we only lodged the patents for the jig last year. So hopefully if they come through, that'll give us another 20 years protection on the jigs, which you need to build the trusses. Okay, here's another question. Can truss be used in commercial wooden skyscraper markets? Yes, we can. With the commercial rated ones, we get up to 3 kPa, which is 300 kilograms a square meter, which covers most commercial applications. If it's a gym or a hall that needs sort of 500 kilograms per square meter, that'll be pushing it. But certainly 3 kPa is not a problem. We just changed the blocks out from 140 for the webs blocks to 190. I-joist versus MEGAjoist. Okay. Look, smaller I-joists, sort of the 200-300 size, are probably the cheapest product on the market. Personally, I wouldn't put them in my house. They're a bit flimsy, I think. And also, there's a little bit of work that people don't realise need to be done with those too. The ends of the trusses are supposed to be blocked out to stiffen up the web, because the webs are quite thin on them. And also, services become a problem. You can only drill a hole 1/3 the diameter in the middle of the truss. So certainly, services are a major problem with those. MEGAjoist, look, we are more expensive. On the sort of the higher range, the 400 to 450 deep trusses, we're probably getting closer. But still, you've still got the same issue with services and so forth.
The Darren, question that came through here is, what's the actual cost of setting up a new warehouse facility for yourselves?
Well, look, as I said, we need around 250 for if you say you've got an empty warehouse, you walk in, 250 will get you up and running. But then, of course, you've got rent or the infrastructure cost of building a warehouse on top of that. So that's where we have to be smart and try and one firm I'm talking to at the moment, they're actually thinking about moving up to Queensland as well. Maybe there's an option there to buy a commercial industrial lot. They need a lot more than us. They would need probably 10,000 square meters, where I'd probably only need 2 or 3 or less. Even 1,500 would probably be enough to get a plant up. So our plant's we're only in a 600 square meter factory, but we can get a kilometre and a bit of trusses out each week, and quite easily. So we're limited by the jig. 1 jig will get you about, I think, $1.5 million a year turnover with 1 jig is about where it's at. So we're not far off that. And this is why we put the patent in with a double jig, so we can put a nailing bridge on the back of the jig, because it's an A-frame type thing, and that won't necessarily double our production, but it will probably give us another 30%, 20-30% off the same jig, with probably no extra increase in staff, because that could be set up just to do small trusses. Have one person sitting there doing 3 meter long trusses, for example. So here's another question: how are they strong as traditional truss without triangulation? That's a good question. Well, it actually follows beam formula, and the blocks and the spacing. If you're a technical person, there's a ratio between the center of the blocks and the space, and there's the ratio between the center of the blocks and the width of the block. And so in our case, our standard case is 440 over 140, and it's pi 3.142. So, and that means that it follows beam formula. You only have to space those blocks out by another 50 mil or so, and then you need to analyze it like a truss, so it's not as effective. But they're strong because they are like a beam. I don't know if you remember the old castellated steel beams, where they cut the top of the steel beam like a castle, and then they sort of slide it along, and they increase the depth of the beam, but it's still a beam.
Darren, another question. Your strategy for the US market. You mentioned you've got someone on the ground over there. Can you just go into that a bit more and sort of the timing on that?
Yeah, look, Ashley, he's actually still working full time for a bank. He's an IT person, but he's got a strong building background. He was based in Melbourne quite a few years ago and was a building designer, so he knows a lot about building, housing, and so forth. And he's still got a passion for it, and he's working in the background, making contacts over in the US. He's found a consultant for us who's going to be a sales rep. Todd, as I said, loves the product, and he's keen to get it selling. But we need to get our ducks lined up first. We need to make sure we've got, for example, if we might have to get adhesive manufactured in the US. The problem with shipping, it's expensive, and the adhesive's got like a 4-month shelf life. if you lose a month of that in shipping, it's not ideal. So we need to find an adhesive manufacturer over there that can manufacture the adhesive that we're using here. And the other thing is manufacturing the jigs. We're going to send a few, maybe 2 or 3 over initially. Set up one as a demonstration to try and sell the jigs, and have 1 or 2 to sell. But then we will have to find someone to manufacture them over there as well, because we're going to need ongoing support for that as well. So these are the sort of things we need to set up before we actually really, truly, try and hit the market there. But Todd was talking about maybe talking to one of his trust companies and maybe setting up a pilot program where they can just sort of try it and slowly introduce their customers to it, and go from there.
Okay. Were there any other questions on your side?
I think I've answered those ones.
Okay.
There's a question come through: is there a limit to how many facilities can be set up in one state? Look, not really. I mean, the main reason for setting up a facility is to get the licenses out there. There's reasonable money in having a facility as well. Don't get me wrong, but I think licenses, in terms of return on investment, is a better option. So, yeah, I'd certainly be just considering 1 in each state at the moment, just to get that momentum with the licenses. And that's not to say that we could end up with 3 or 4 in each state down the track. Also, there's a question here: can other engineers design these trusses? Are you the sole certifying engineer? Look, the answer is yes, they can. At the moment, I'm the sole engineer, and the database has been great. The online calculations portal has been great. That's something we'll have to set up in the US as well. As I said, we've got a consulting firm in the US that we've paid to verify the calculations of the US standards, and I'm talking to them at the moment about maybe setting up a similar sort of portal over there, where the trust companies can log on, generate a report. They'll have to get paid something for that. So whether that's a download each time someone downloads the calculations, or it's might be part of the trust company's license agreement. They pay an annual fee of 10 grand or whatever it is, and that covers off the engineering. So these are some of the things that we need to iron out, particularly in the US.
Okay, great. Well, look, it's 6:45 now. I'm sure everyone's keen to get off and have their dinner and do what they've got to do. But okay, any final thoughts or comments, Darren, before we pull up?
Oh, look, I really personally believe in the product. I've thrown everything into it myself, and I just hope you guys want to come along for the ride, and hopefully we can all win from this.
Excellent. Oh, thanks for that, Darren. Look, thanks for everyone for joining. We will put out a recording of this if there's any points you want to pick up on later on. But look, as I said, we're very excited to be working with Darren and his team, and we think it's a great business and a great opportunity to be putting out on our platform, to our database of investors. So if you have any further questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us at On Market, and we can feed them through to Darren and his team.
Yeah.
But thank you for joining.
Thanks everyone.